Welcome to a new Draw My Life video.
Japanese legends are back to Scary Tuesdays here on Draw the Life TikTak. It's been a while since we shared a scary Japanese legend with you. Today we'll talk about Hachishakusama, a terrible and horrifying Japanese spirit with the shape of a woman who kidnaps children. This Japanese cousin to a Slenderman has all the little kids terrified. They say that Hachishakusama means something similar to the 8 feet tall lady. Hachi means 8. Shaku refers to an ancient Japanese measurement unit, approximately 2.5 or 3 meters. And Sama means miss or lady, which is usually used as a sign of respect towards people who are superior to you in some way. The legend says that Hachishakusama was imprisoned years ago in 4 small Jitsu statues. However, one of the statues broke, and that gave her the opportunity to escape from her prison. Here, we bring you the story of a young boy who managed to survive the spirit when he was just 8 years old. Every summer, my parents would bring me to my grandparents' house in a small rural town in Japan. I would feel very free in there. A hot afternoon, while I was resting on the grass of the yard, I heard a strange sound. I didn't know where it was coming from, but because I'm curious by nature, I decided to look around. It sounded like a deep voice, and it was saying something like, "Papa, Papa," as if someone was talking to himself or herself. I noticed that over the hedge there was a woman's head. The sound was coming from there, and the head was moving. That was a very weird sight, because what I was seeing could not have been a person. How could someone be so tall? I took a closer look, and I saw her. I saw an extremely tall woman between the branches, and her arms and legs seemed infinite. She had long black hair, and you could barely see her face. She had a long black dress that matched her head. I wanted to get closer, but the woman got away, taking her weird sounds with her. When I got back home, I found my grandparents drinking tea in the kitchen, and I told them what had happened. They didn't pay much attention to what I was saying. But when I mentioned the height of that woman and the sound she was making, both of my grandparents turned pale. My grandma stopped herself from screaming. My grandpa, with a very serious look, took me by the arm and made me repeat all the details of where I was and when it happened. Grandpa ran out of the kitchen and grabbed the phone in the hallway to call someone. I stayed in the kitchen with my grandma. I was very scared, and she was trembling in fear. My grandpa told us he had to go out for a moment and asked my grandma not to take her eyes off of me. Crying, I asked grandma what was going on. With sadness, she said, "Hachishakusama has put her eyes on you." That spirit is a being that searches for children in order to take advantage of them because they are easier to deceive. Thus, when a child is of the liking of Hachishakusama, that child will be doomed. The spirit will kidnap the kid, and he or she will disappear forever. My grandpa, determined to defend me, went out to search for a witch capable of confronting Hachishakusama. The witch ordered me to stay in my room, locked me up in there, and told me that I couldn't go out under any circumstance before 7 a.m. Before leaving me alone, she placed 4 bowls of salt in the 4 corners of my room, and also placed an image of Buddha that I should pray to whenever I felt fear. She gave me a piece of parchment and told me to keep it in my hand at all times. I spent the night completely alone, hearing strange sounds outside the window, including the familiar sound which announced the arrival of Hachishakusama. I suddenly heard the voice of my grandpa asking me how I was feeling. He told me that if I was afraid, all I had to do was open the door. And I felt so much fear that I almost opened it. But fortunately, I quickly remembered what the witch told me, and trembling in fear, I knelt before the Buddha and prayed repeatedly, terrified and crying. The salt in the bowls was turning dark. That night felt never-ending, and the tapping on the window was not stopping. When sunrise finally came, the salt was completely black. I looked at the clock and saw that I could now get out of my room. My grandparents cried of happiness when they saw me safe and sound. My grandpa, without delay, took all of us out of the house and got me in a van in the middle of 8 men from the town the witch was driving. Sitting among those men, all of them relatives of the witch, they told me that although I was in big trouble, all I had to do was keep my head down and my eyes closed, as only I could see Hachishakusama. However, when they tell you to close your eyes, that only entices you to open them more, doesn't it? And I did. I kept my head down, but I saw her outside the window, floating by the side of the van with a white dress. She put her face close to the window. I screamed and closed my eyes as strongly as I could while squeezing the parchment I was given the previous night. The others couldn't see her, nor hear the chilling sound she was making, but they could hear when she was tapping the body and windows of the van. Kei-san, the witch, started to pray so loudly that her prayer turned into screaming. After praying screaming for a while, the sounds and the tapping ceased. And this is the story of how I survived. I could never go back to my grandparents' house, as I ran the risk of the spirit kidnapping me and finishing what she set out to do. We don't know what it is that she does to her victims, but some say that she feeds off the young essence of her praise.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, and if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!